And I think Penn Badgley gives his best performances, Joe. That final scene solidifies why he is just such an evil being. Why do I root for him? You can't. I have to stop that scene. That scene broke my heart. I couldn't do it. And not that I was rooting for him before, but there's this weird thing that you like him. Hello and welcome to the movie podcast review of You Season 4, Part 2. My name is Daniel. I am one of your hosts today, and I am joined alongside my fellow killers, Anthony
Hello.
and Shahbaz.
Stab, stab, stab.
Oh, okay. You're just going to make it obvious. And I did introduce you as killers.
You did introduce me as a killer. I went right into it. Why hide it?
It's true. It's true. We are talking a lot about different killers this week. We have our Scream review coming out. We're talking about You. So there's lots of good times happening here on the movie podcast. We are diving full into spoilers of You Season 4, Part 2. This has been a long time coming. We've been very excited to talk about this second part to You Season 4, which for myself personally, I've really enjoyed. I think this may be my favorite season of the show after the first season. So I'm really excited to get everyone's thoughts on where we are now. And of course, this is out now on Netflix. I want to say thank you to our friends at Netflix Canada for sending us the season to watch. We could talk about it freely now. It is out for you to watch. So make sure if you have not watched part 2 of season 4, stop this review right now, go watch it, and then come on back and we're going to talk all about it. But of course, this is the movie podcast. You could catch a brand new episode all throughout the week with interviews and reviews on all the latest movies and series. We have some incredible episodes out right now that you can listen to and lots more on the way. So tune in for all of that and more. If you want to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Letterboxd, you could do so at the Movie Podcast. And of course, make sure you're following us on YouTube and join our Discord. We have some great conversations going on in there. Check out our show notes for all of those links and more. But we do have a lovely panel of hosts on today's episode that we are going to be talking all about You with. So Shay, I just want to ask you, where are you right now in terms of where season 4 left off at the end of part 1? And what was your mindset going into part 2?
I really enjoyed part 1, and I spoke a lot about the things that I wasn't a big fan of, but overall, I did have a good time with it. We were left on a cliffhanger. There was a lot of questions to be answered, and it felt like maybe the story was going to go in a bit of a predictable way. Like I was trying to already piece it together as to what the next 5-ish episodes are going to be about. I could not have been more wrong, and I did not predict at all what was going to happen, and I am so glad. Like it completely caught me off guard, and in the best of ways.
I love that. Anthony, same question. Where were you? Where's your head at? Finishing part 1 of season 4 and then going into this new part of the season, because it really is. It really does take a lot of different turns that I don't think any of us were expecting in this season.
Yeah, I was okay with the beginning of season 4. Part 1 was interesting. It was this murder mystery. Joe had to kind of become Mr. Sherlock for a couple of episodes and try to figure out who the killer is. But part 2 is, I would say, so much better than part 1. I would say part 2 is really, really eye-opening, and there's still a lot of fluff that was around in it, but I enjoyed part 2 a lot more.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think part 1 I had a lot of fun with. I really liked the different setting. Penn Badgley with the beard and longer hair. Joe's this different guy now. He's Jonathan. So it was just cool seeing, like let's try something different with this season. And the season has been very different. Then of course we're going down a very dark path, especially with this second half of episodes. Of course, this is another 5 episodes for us to go through. I want to get right into our reactions, and I think there's no better place to start than at the very end. Shay, I would love your thoughts, your immediate thoughts coming out of that finale. Joe is back. He has all the money in the world now to do whatever he wants, and I think we are really getting. Should we get a season 5? Which I hope we get a season 5, because how are you going to end it here? Where are you? What? How are you feeling? But like, there's so many reveals. I want you to start us off for us, and we're going to kind of get through some of the big reveals that we get this season.
Yeah, it's been a few days since I watched it, and I'm still kind of reeling in from it. I'm still at that point where I'm like, The ending to me when it was happening, the last sequence of the show, I'm like, oh, has to be a dream sequence. Like, there's no way. Like, holy shit, what's happening? I was just in shock moment. Like, it felt like a domino effect of everything kind of happening. And when it finally was revealed of what's happened, I was stunned. I was literally like, "Oh my god, how do you do this? How do you end a season like this?" And then I started to think about it. I'm like, we really just got 4 seasons of the origin stories of a serial killer. Like,
Yeah.
that's really what it is. Like, this, you got to learn the birth, the process, everything about this person who we kept. I don't want to say we were rooting for Joe, obviously, but
No, but he's a
he
very
was
likable character, right?
very likable. He's
Yeah.
charming in the sense that like okay, but now you get to that point where he's full blown. I am a serial killer. I have
Mhm.
accepted it. I am who I am, and he's melded one with that persona that he was creating, and he's gone clean shaven because serial killers, they can't have facial hair. Like us. We would not be serial killers because of our facial hair. That is the obvious tell right there.
It
Daniel
is. That's why
shaves a
I'm
lot.
half. I'm
He
half.
does
I'm
shave
half.
a lot though.
I don't shave a lot. I've shaved like twice in the last like 5 years.
No,
and
you
you
have
guys have
shaved.
never
You shaved a lot.
let me. No, you guys could go back and watch the videos. I remember I was clean shaven for when we did the Mighty Ducks Game Changers interviews.
Yeah.
And then I shaved this down when we went to that 70s
Yeah. So
Steve
you're
party.
killing a little bit. You're not fully.
Yeah.
You're not
And
fully
that's what
serial killer.
I was just say. I have the mustache, so like it's like you're on the line. It's like you're lucky.
You're
lucky.
hurting.
You
You're
got
hurting
something.
people. You may not be killing them though.
Exactly. I'm Batman. I'm Batman at this point. But I think let's talk about the Giants. Person who's not in the room. Reese is revealed that this is just a figure of
Oh,
Joe's
what a
personality that he's
moment!
been talking to. That reveal, I remember my jaw was just like I couldn't even believe it. Like and this is I think one of the first big the really big twist that the show has pulled on us where it's revealed that this character we've seen him talk to people before. We've seen him talk to people who aren't there before, dead people in either in dreams or in visions that he has. But to have a character throughout this whole thing just be right in front of us, this makes me excited to go back and watch season 4 from the beginning and look for little tells. Just be like, is this happening? Is this in his head? It is a really cool reveal. Anthony, what was your reaction to the reveal that Reese was not, in fact, there?
I remember the ending of my prediction for part 1 was, Joe and Reese have to fight it out or maybe become friends. And because, the whole idea was, let's get these rich kids, and they were really great people, so who cares if you kill them or not? Not knowing that
God.
they're the same person. They were the
Yeah.
same, the split personality within Joel. And I remember it was episode 8, and I messaged you guys. I'm like, did you guys watch episode 8? Like that's when it all happens. And yeah, I was shocked that everything that we were experiencing from the first episode to that point, we thought Reese was, yes, he is an actual person, but the Reese that was envisioned by Joe was completely a figment of his imagination. It was this obsession with this person who then became his, I would say, his devil side, because he was battling himself in this sense. And yeah, when it's revealed that he is Reese, he is that person, he is the serial killer, he is, he kept Marianne
Yep.
in the chamber all this time. It was actually, I felt like, oh man, I was rooting for you for so long. And
Me too, man.
and
I'm like,
you
you're changing your
stabbed-
lives. You let her go.
You stabbed me in the heart. You stabbed me in the heart. And that's what happens when you trust serial killers, when you trust this character, right? Like,
Yeah.
you get stabbed. You eventually
You
get
get
stabbed.
get stabbed.
But yeah, it was a shock to me.
Yeah.
Another big reveal this year. Sorry, Shay.
No,
please
no, I
continue.
was just gonna agree.
Okay, just agree.
Just agree.
No worries. Yeah, I mean, it is, Anthony. It's funny that we say that because we're literally talking about a serial killer. We're talking about an awful person that we should not be rooting for. But it's such a moment where it's just like, damn the show for making me feel sad that Joe is killing people again. You know what I mean? It's such a silly thing to feel like, yeah, when you say it out loud, you're just like, yeah, you're disappointed in Joe.
Well, the
And it's like
build-up, right?
Right.
It's
It's
the
all this
trust. He's like,
buildup.
"Oh, I don't wanna kill people. I hate killing
Yeah.
people. I hate doing all these things. I wish I
Hmm.
was just living this professor life." And then all of a sudden, he is that person. He is
Right.
it's like this world that he's living in, and you're just like, "I trusted you." And fuck, they got me.
Yeah.
I got. I
We
got.
got. We got, and that's exactly it. We thought the show presented the idea again because Joe is telling the story. He is not a reliable narrator of the story that he is telling. So we are only living and we are only going to the show knowing what Joe is telling us. I was going to say another great reveal this season is that Kate's father, who we've heard so much about in part one, how he is responsible for the death of thousands of children from what stuff that his company does, and he has all the money and power of God. He is revealed to be the one and only Greg Kinnear, who I love Greg Kinnear so much. I think he plays this role just so wonderfully. He is such an asshole, but you love him for it. Shay.
That moment at the dinner scene where they go in for the hug and he just whispers into his ear, Joe. I
Hmm.
just I threw my remote across my bed. I was like, what? Like,
Yeah.
it was just so crazy. And again, you're right, Greg Kinnear. He's just that guy. He's so good. He's so good at being a nice guy, but also being this like devilish asshole about things,
Right.
that I was like, oh man, do I root for you? And he felt like such a formidable foe for Joe as well. Like, he was just the
Oh
right
yeah.
level of smart, and he had the money to back the smarts as well.
Right. Anthony, how about you? What was it like seeing Greg Kinnear popping up and giving our Joe a run for his money?
I was trying to remember if it was announced that he was going to be in this show, but so when I saw him, like, oh, that's interesting. Like, he's his villain in a sense, right? Like, and he needs to protect Kate, and somehow he has to kill her father, and also have this relationship. It's like all these things that he puts in his head, and yeah, like it was interesting to see that his character, even though he represented like this yuppie, very rich, very powerful person who knows of Joe's past and can really put a hurt
Hmm.
on him. It was an interesting dynamic because the only other person that I can really think of was Love, in that sense that she knew everything Joel did, uh, and she loved him, but there was also this weird dynamic where, can I trust you? In this
Right.
case, he couldn't trust the father because he was going to leverage what he knew about him to get more control over his daughter.
Exactly that. And I think Kate is an interesting one this season because y- I think from the experience that we've had with all of Joe's previous lovers, you're always just like, can I really trust you? Can he be Jonathan with Kate, or is he going to be Joe with her? And then we get that final moment, back in New York City. We have Joe back in New York City, fully clean shaven, doing an interview. It's such a moment where you're just like, he's going to get away with this. He is going to get away with the crimes that he's done. And I love Nadia. Nadia is a character that I think we didn't talk about too much in part one, but she gets, I think, a more expanded role in part two because she's really starting to investigate, see what's going on, and try and take down Joe. And when she finds out Marianne's trapped and you see them down there, my heart breaks because Marianne is also terrified, and uh, she's just she says you can't go to the cops, like you cannot, this guy will find a way to get out of it, and Joe always does. And I think one of the moments in this season that also just broke my heart is when we find out obviously that Joe's keeping Marianne trapped, and he gets a text message on her phone saying that from, I guess, the grandmother, I guess, of her child, so taking her child away because they think that she is like left to go to relapse and to do drugs again. And it's such a heartbreaking moment, and literally my heart sank, and I literally had to pause the show because I think Tati Gabrielle, her acting literally moved me so much there because I was just so broken for her, as someone who is a mother who has a past like that and is wanting to do better, and to know that her 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 daughter is going to grow up thinking that her mom abandoned her to do drugs. And it's such a dark moment in this show. and it's forever a moment that I'm going to just be like, fuck you, Joe. Like you are such a bad person. But again, you just, there's something magnetizing about, I think it's just Penn Badgley's performance throughout this. Any other thoughts? Because there's something I do want to talk about towards the end of the season, but I want you guys to jump in. Shay, how are you feeling? Any other moments this season that stand out to you?
I mean, that moment was horrifying, but then I'm so lucky that at the end the reveal does happen that it was all planted. Like,
Right.
Nadia and them work together, because I felt that pain. I'm like, oh my god, like, Marianne, she's worked so hard to build this relationship, but her smarts kicked in and she planted this whole thing with with Nadia. Another character that I'm glad also finally got some more of a revelation in this part two was the character of Dawn, who we kept seeing in part one, where
Yes.
she was just kind of like, oh, who's this person that just happens to be around? Like, does she know more about Joe than I expected? Turning out to be just a huge, fan of Lady Phoebe. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
my dog wants to join in this conversation as well.
He's a big fan of Lady Phoebe.
He's a big fan of
Aren't
Lady
we all?
Phoebe. Yes. When we realized that Lady Phoebe has this stalker, and that whole sequence happens, that was crazy as well.
Anthony, how about yourself? Any other moments that stand out to you?
For me, it was the Nadia being framed for Edward's death.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going to go to after this.
That was the moment I'm like, I hate this guy. Like,
yeah,
there's not a lot.
It's so sinister.
Yeah,
it's so sinister.
And when you experience a moment like that where you want to jump into the screen and kill the guy, like that's what I felt. I'm like, poor Nadia. All she was doing is a good thing, and she's sent to jail for the murder of a friend at school. And Joe lives this wonderful life, rich life, successful life, protected life, and Nadia has to be in jail, just like Stamos's character from season 1, right? Like, he goes to jail for the murder of what was her name? Guinevere. So it's just tragic. I'm like, this is the first time I'm like, I hated him in season 1, but I'm like, okay, season 2 kind of redeemed himself in a bit, but this now I'm like, they have to kill him. There has to be some sort of, like, he needs to die. And
keeping Marianne alive, I think it kind of leaves that door open for season 5.
Yeah, like I need someone to assassinate this dude.
Yeah,
and Kate like being okay with everything that's happened. Him kind of confessing everything he's done in his past. It's kind of sucky because now she's you're not better than him. You're just the same, right? Like, you're in this same boat.
But I mean,
as
her
him.
dad's out of the picture now.
Yeah.
With her dad out of the picture, they have all the money and power of God. They could do whatever they want. And it really is such, again, he's an awful person. He is such a villain, but it's such a villainous turn. It's such a sinister turn at the end where he is so calmly talking to Nadia. He's just so calm, saying, and this is what it is. Give me your phone. I'm gonna scan your face to get into it, delete all these photos, and so peacefully tell her that's, this is what's going to happen. You're not going to say anything. And let me reveal what's behind door number 1. It is dead boyfriend. And
so hurtful.
It's justice for Nadia, it is. I cannot wait to see how she's going to extract her revenge, hopefully next season, because I hope she gets redeemed somehow, because my God, what a sinister ending. And then we also get, the Taylor Swift song playing, and it's like, he's the problem. It's him. You know what I mean? And I think it's just such a great moment, especially if you follow him on TikTok and in socials, where he posted that video of him singing that like last year.
Yeah.
And I think it's an interesting full circle moment as well too. But a lot of twists and turns. And again, with the show that's gone on for as long as it has been, I think You's done a great job of reinventing itself every season. I think season 4 especially has been the biggest reinvention of the series that we've seen so far. And it got me. It's got its hooks in me, and now I'm just ravenously waiting to see how is Joe. Joe needs to go. Joe needs to go. We need it. He's got to go. We got to find a way.
That's
to
a
take
tagline. I want that on the poster.
Joe's got to go.
Joe
needs to go.
Joe's got to go.
Now, 100%. For the Americans, we're not talking about Joe Biden. Just want to make that very clear.
No.
He needs to go too. No, I'm just joking.
It took a very strange turn this episode. Next season, we're going to go to London too. We're going to take all our show and go to London and take it from there. But
and then who's going to be the serial killer? Daniel, because he probably shaved when he went.
I'm gonna have a nice curly mustache too. I want to
Uh,
make it obvious that
yeah.
who he is. But now that we've had this final season, I want to give it a proper rating. Let's give it our final recommendations as a whole. Part 1 and part 2 of season 4. Shahbaz, I would love for you to start us off. Give us your final recommendation of You season 4.
I think it's a watch it. If you've been watching this series so far, and if part one for at any point maybe didn't completely have its hooks in you, or you felt like, oh, I'm not a big fan of this murder mystery element, part two not only goes back to its roots in the sense of Joe being a killer, but it goes back with such force that it almost unlocks everything that's happened in the previous seasons. This is Joe at his culmination. This is Joe at full force. No more Jonathan. Joe Goldberg is here and he's here to kill.
Anthony, how about yourself?
I would say it's a watch it. It's the whole season can do without a couple of episodes. I would say like max 8. There was a lot of
Yep, that's
fluff in
fair.
the beginning and in the end that we really didn't need, especially with the group of friends, and their problems. I don't think it added any value to the whole story, and I think with 50-minute episodes to an hour episodes, a lot of this could have been condensed into 8. And I really like part 2. I think it sets up the character for season 5, and you're going to not like what he's done, and you're going to hate him. And yeah, like I was jaw dropped when everything happened. They really got me, and I think it says a lot. I think that's why Netflix did a part 1 and part 2. I think they wanted this break to kind of get you into, okay, it's a murder mystery. It's completely different than what we've experienced in the past, but part 2, that switch and everything that we've experienced from that switch, and who Joe really is, that serial killer, and all that time we've been trying to believe he wasn't. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a really good ending.
We were almost hoping for him not to. It was like, we'll forgive what happened before,
Yeah.
but going further, like you're good. You're London Jonathan's a good guy, but yeah, I'm right there with you guys. I think this season is much watch TV. It really does go back to its roots, but it really turns Joe into this super villain that I think we've been really building up over the last 4 seasons. And I think Penn Badgley gives his best performance as Joe. That final scene solidifies why he is just such an evil being. Why do I root for him? You can't. I have to stop that scene. That scene broke my heart. I couldn't do it. And not that I was rooting for him before, but there's this weird thing that you like him and you root for him. But I think what a roller coaster. I think I'm right there with Anthony, where it's like, yeah, I think we could have lost a couple episodes. I also think episode 6, coming after the finale that we had in part 1, gets off to a bit of a slower start for me. But it really is in episode 7 where it's just pedal to the floor. Let's go, twists and turns. You're not going to predict where this is going. So yeah, it's a definite watch it. You're going to have a great time with it. Thank you so much for listening to our season 4 part 2 review of You. Of course, it is streaming now on Netflix. Have a great time with it, because we sure did. And of course, there are lots of episodes of the movie podcast out right now for you to listen to. Make sure you check out our show notes below for all of the links and more to see everything that we've been doing. Follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Letterboxd. There's so much going on right now on the Movie Podcast. We want to make sure you tune in for all of it and more. That was this time with the Movie Podcast, and we'll see you next.